A while ago, I thought it would be funny to ask ChatGPT to write an episode of the podcast, and this is what it came up with. Originally, this was just for my own amusement, but after talking to Martin and Kim, we decided that it might be fun to actually record it and put it out. We also thought we'd do a little competition. I put 3 main prompts into ChatGPT to get this episode written, and we would like you to guess what those prompts were. So either email your guesses to us or DM us on one of our socials, and the first person to get at least 2 of the prompts right wins a t-shirt. Stay tuned to the end of the podcast for our email address and our socials links. And with that out of the way, on with the special.
I'm not taking responsibility for this script on any level whatsoever.
I'm not taking responsibility for either of you on any level.
Welcome, Watchers of Illusion, to another thrilling episode of Temporal Discussion, the Nightmare Podcast, where we deep dive into the dungeons of deceit.
No, we don't. That's not what we're doing at all.
Oh no, we're 10 seconds in and he's already started.
Martin, we've been over this. The podcast is literally about discussing Nightmare. That's the entire premise.
Well, I disagree with the premise and the title. And honestly, your tone of voice, do that again and try not to sound like a medieval substitute teacher.
Well, we're off to a flying start. Let's just move on before he starts disagreeing with himself again.
Fine. Today we're tackling 2 pillars of Nightmare lore, the baffling passive paths, and everyone's favourite elven sass dispenser, Pickle.
Wrong. They're not pillars. They're more like small, wobbly stilts supporting a questionable structure made of papier-mâché and broken dreams.
Yeah, honestly, I'd listen to that podcast.
Let's get into it before this turns into a philosophical debate about the nature of fictional dungeon design.
Segment 1. The Passive Path Problem.
Discussion unfolds, with Martin and Odoni disagreeing with everyone and everything, including himself.
I do not.
Okay. I'm calling time on passive paths. They're confusing, poorly utilised, and apparently Martin is now disagreeing with the concept of floor-based guidance systems.
Because they're stupid and also genius. And also stupid again.
Oh, you're exhausting.
And you, sir, are a juggling thunder.
That's certainly a phrase. Shall we move on to Pickle before Martin explodes like a poorly rigged room in level 2?
Segment 2. Pickle Sass. The elf, the myth, the legend.
Right, let's shift gears and talk about Pickle, the unsung hero of Nightmare.
No, he wasn't.
Martin, I swear to God.
Pickle carried this show, and you know it. The sass, the sarcasm, the barely concealed contempt for dithering teams. He was perfection.
Adequate. He was adequate. No more than adequate. In fact, probably somewhat less than adequate.
Martin, I swear I will throw you out of this metaphorical dungeon window.
You'd miss.
Pickle was a legend, and your insistence on diminishing his contributions is frankly embarrassing. It's like arguing that Merlin was just an okay wizard.
Merlin was just an okay wizard.
Oh my God, I need a drink.
Right, final point before we move on. Pickle deserved more credit, more screen time, more, I don't know, just an entire spin-off series.
Spin-offs are inherently flawed. They dilute the core narrative, fracture the audience's emotional investment, and ultimately serve as pale imitations of the original material.
Did you just rehearse that in the mirror this morning?
Yes, and I disagree with myself.
Listener question of the week.
Okay, let's limp our way into the listener question. This one comes from Dave in Nottingham. If Pickle had been a Dungeoneer, would he have survived?
Absolutely. He would sass his way through every encounter and roll his eyes at every obstacle. Pure survival energy.
No, he wouldn't.
Martin, why? Just why?
Because he'd refused to play, of course. He'd hand the helmet of justice back and might have bog off. I'm not dying for your entertainment.
Honestly, fair point.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the most admirable aspects of pickle. There's been very few of them.
Closing remarks. The explosion.
Well, watchers, that's all for today. Whether you're walking passive paths or channeling your inner pickle, remember, clarity is key and overthinking is deadly.
No, it's not.
Oh, for God's sake, Martin.
Overthinking is what kept many teams alive. Without it, they'd have plummeted into bottomless pits or been gnawed on by oversized spiders.
You cannot seriously be defending overthinking in a show where teams lost because they couldn't follow a glowing line on the floor.
Yes, I can. Overthinking is a virtue. Meanwhile, you, Mr. H, are an insufferable know-it-all with all the charm of a stocky cabbage and a chainmail thong.
Well, you're a pedantic windbag with the charisma of a malfunctioning gargoyle.
Oh, very clever, Harder. Did you stay up all night googling insults.com for that one?
At least I didn't rehearse self-contradictory monologues in the mirror like some kind of discount dungeon villain.
Guys!
Your beard looks like it was glued on by a blind goblin.
You dress like a rejected extra from a Monty Python skit.
Guys!
Punch you in the willy.
Oh my god, they're actually fighting. Martin, put down that microphone stand. Other Martin, stop trying to strangle him with your headphone cable.
I'll see you in level 3, Harder.
Only if you survive the combat room, Odoni.
Right, that's it. I'm ending this. Watchers, thank you for tuning in. I've got to separate these two before one of them ends up in the real Vale of Banburn. Until next time, bog off. You can follow us on Twitter, we're at NightmarePod, and our Mastodon is topspicy.social/@NightmarePod.
We're also Nightmare Pod on Threads, and our Instagram is Temporal Discussion, all one word, no hyphen.
And you can also now follow us on Blue Sky, where we're nightmarepod.bsky.social.
If you want to support the podcast, we are Nightmare Pod on Patreon.
Speaking of Patreon, here's a shout out to Keepers of the Book of Quests, David Ed Rabbit, Paul McIntosh, Peter Paulsford, and Scott Evans.
Advisors, Benjamin Bloom, David Thompson, Kim Harder, which is a silly surname, Kim Stewart-Crossley, who's she? Lord Entropy, where the O is A0, Paul Craddy, Peter Sidorn, and Pig Venus.
And let's not forget Dungeoneers Pete Courage, Dan Heath, and Adam Battersby.
If you support us on Patreon at Dungeoneer level or above, you'll get your name mentioned on the podcast. Higher level perks also receive merchandise, have access to exclusive episodes, and if you pledge as a Keeper of the Book of Quests, we'll even offer you the chance to be a guest on the podcast.
Our website is nightmarepod.co.uk.
If you're looking for Temporal Discussion merchandise, including t-shirts, stickers, and other products, it's nightmarepod.redbubble.com.
You can email us at podcast@nightmarepod.co.uk.
And just keep telling yourself, it's only a podcast. Isn't it?